Before I start, I'd like to first thank my advisor, Professor Barbara Tannenbaum. You have taught me not only to become a more confident speaker, but how to enjoy sharing my stories, but also listening to others. I am so lucky to be your student. I'd also like to thank my beloved parents and my sister, Victory, for their endless support in chasing after my dreams. In moments of doubt, you've taught me to trust in you who trust in me. I would not be here without you. And last but not least, I would like to thank my dual degree advisors, Hannah, Jordan, and Michelle, and my talented friends sitting right here. It's been such a pleasure to learn and grow next to you. We've finally completed our 5-year-long journey. And now let me tell you my version of that journey. I was a 4th grader in South Korea when I started telling everyone I wanted to become a fashion designer, simply because I loved arts and craft and picking out my outfits. I also loved being the kid who knew exactly what she wanted to become. But my mom, being very wise, told me, you can't just say you want to become something. You should test it out. She gave me a small cutout from my teen's newspaper, which I had never read. It was for a fashion design competition for Mimi dolls, which are the Korean equivalent of Barbies. It was open for everyone of all ages from all backgrounds. I was only 10, so my mom thought this was just going to be a fun exercise. But for weeks, I was completely absorbed in my sketchbook trying to come up with the best design I could possibly create. I played with Mimi dolls a lot myself, so I knew exactly what one box of Mimi doll came with. Only one outfit, 2 if many. It was never enough for all the role-playing games I needed to play. So, to solve my own little problem, I had an idea. I built the concept of using small buttons to deconstruct and reconstruct 10 different outfits within a single Mimi doll box. The first page of my submission was a giant drawing of a button. There were 400 plus participants, mostly college students studying fashion, who submitted real sewn prototypes with professional illustrations, and they awarded only 6 people. To my parents' surprise, I won the 6th place. Unlike the typical gold, silver, or honorable mentions, my award was called Marketer's Award. I had no idea what marketer meant, but I didn't care. They sent me a crystal trophy and a giant Mimi doll box. I was in heaven. I remember thinking to myself, this is it. Fashion is my path. My parents still think that they made up that last award last minute to encourage a 10-year-old, and it's possible. But 14 years later, as if everything was meant to be, I am now working for one of the most iconic New York fashion houses in the marketing department. Today, I can finally connect the dots on why they gave the young girl the Marketer's Award. Before designing, she had a clear problem she wanted to solve: more outfits in one box. She also wanted more creative freedom to redesign those outfits by mixing and matching. And while designing, she was thinking of herself, her younger sister, and friends who were actively playing with the dolls. She didn't know how to sew back then, so she kept sketching and re-sketching until she felt confident the grown-ups could understand her vision. In other words, she first identified a specific problem, connected with the right users or audience, and continuously iterated. And realizing that this 3-step process holds true in both design and marketing or entrepreneurship is the biggest takeaway from my last 5 years in the Brown RISD dual degree program. So now, I'd like to zoom into those 5 years and share with you how this interdisciplinary education helped me understand and execute those 3 steps: problem, connection, solution, not just in design or entrepreneurship, but also in the bigger picture of life. When I first started the program, how I prioritized the 2 institutions looked something like this. I already knew I wanted to do fashion, but only from a fine art perspective. My view on career prospects in fashion was very narrow. I wanted to become an artist or designer while leveraging my Brown education as a source of inspiration. Like all first years in the program, I explored diverse forms of art through RISD Foundation year, from drawings to sculptures, and diverse courses at Brown through open curriculum such as anthropology, cognitive linguistics, and East Asian studies. I could see everything that piqued my interest as the shining dots, but they didn't seem to make a cohesive trail yet. How to exactly drive the synergy from the two institutions was still a mystery. The following summer, I reached a turning point. I was selected as one of the 20 inaugural scholars of the Gucci Changemakers program. During the program, I met executive leaders from different departments across Gucci and its parent company, Kering. The program opened my eyes to an entirely other world of fashion that instantly fascinated me. That was business strategy and marketing. What I loved the most was how the leaders described their positions as problem solvers, and they do so by building an emotional connection with consumers through their brand storytelling. When you buy a $3,000 Gucci handbag, for instance, you're not just buying the bag. You're buying the emotional experience and becoming part of the brand's identity. While I wasn't necessarily fixated on working for luxury, it sparked a new interest in me, which profoundly shifted my positioning within the fashion industry. I thought, what if I become a businesswoman who has a thorough understanding of making what she sells? Shortly after, I declared economics and business track at Brown. To further test my newly found interest in business strategy, I interned in the strategy department at a luxury handbag startup, Senrev, and global marketing department at a fashion eyewear portfolio, Altair, under VSB Global. In every interview, I would start marketing myself as a problem solver, fluent in both the language of business and design principles. For extracurriculars I worked on and off campus, I started asking 3 questions. What problem should I solve? Who should I connect with? And how can I iterate and improve the current solution? Problem, connection, solution. It's easy to screw this seemingly straightforward process because we often overlook the very first step of identifying the problem. There's a saying in Korean that you have to get the first button right in your shirt for the rest to be correct. The startup world and the design thinking evangelizers hammer on this lesson too. If you don't get the problem right, you won't connect with the right people, nor find the right solution. And it's amazing how these steps can apply for everything we do in life. Let me walk you through some of the simple examples from my own experience. In my second year, I co-led sustainability project in a Brown RISD joint club designed for America with a fellow dually here at Mehek. Our team was challenged by an incredible amount of plastic and paper bag waste from the takeout meal system on campus during the pandemic. So we set out to first understand how recycling works on campus, where students feel most confused or frustrated by recycling, and what kind of product we generated from waste could be most useful to students at the moment. As a result, we designed new posters and labels for recycling bins where we featured single-use cups, utensils, and boxes directly coming out of our cafeterias. We also recycled the paper bags into small journals for sale, in which we donated all proceeds to charity at the end. My second example is from my first and third year. I was heavily involved in student theater at Brown as a costume designer. In those 2 years combined, I designed for a total of 7 productions. For every show, I was faced with the same challenge. Student theater was always so low on budget. I learned to be extremely resourceful and creative by pulling costumes from actors' wardrobe, thrifting, altering, and embellishing. Almost every piece that went on stage had gone through my sewing machine. One of my favorite stories is during Rocky Horror when the main character needed a surgical gown. So I went to the COVID testing center to ask for one, and I just remember 5 of them staring at me for 3 seconds while wearing the surgical gown themselves. Theater is a highly collaborative environment between student actors, directors, and designers. Costume design is one way to set the tone of the show and visually help the characters come to life. It makes the characters more believable and the experience of watching the show more immersive. and I will cherish all of the chaotic yet heartwarming memories backstage. My final example stems from the fashion industry's biggest and most difficult challenge, the waste problem. I've been itching to try what I can do as a student to help retail stores constantly facing overstock issues, starting from the RISD store and the Brown bookstore. I spoke with the directors who kindly helped me understand their current overstock issues and the unique conditions of each store. And I pitched them my plans for upcycling their overstock into unique university merchandise for sale. In May of 2022, we launched the first missing button upcycling collection at the RISD store, which sold out immediately. Then completed 2 additional partnerships with the Brown bookstore during family weekend and graduation week. In case you are wondering why I named it Missing Button, in high school, I briefly worked for an alteration shop and was surprised by how many people didn't know how to sew a button back on when it was the simplest thing you can do to keep a garment functional. So that memory inspired me to name my project Missing Button. I didn't even realize at the time how the buttons just kept coming back to my life ever since the Mimi Doll contest. All of these projects helped me solidify my identity as a problem solver and really get in the habit of operating all things in the framework of problem, connection, solution. And it became clear to me that it was my dual identity that was influencing the way I work and defining the types of projects I felt passionate about. With only Brown or only RISD, I wouldn't have had such multiplicity of interests, opportunities, and outcomes. Problem, connection, solution. This is a process for both great entrepreneurs and designers. In the summer after my 3rd year, I finally landed in my dream internship in business transformation at Tapestry, a fashion conglomerate of iconic New York brands including Coach, Kate Spade, and Stuart Weitzman. After my internship, I continued working as a part-time contractor while finishing the last 2 years of Brown RISD. This July, I am thrilled to onboard full-time and join the team in person in the New York office. Parallel pathing work and school in the last 2 years was an invaluable experience. I could test how the things I learned at school could really apply in the real world. And soon, Tapestry became a critical component in my dual degree education. To hone into my marketing and communication skills, I took courses outside of economics like persuasive communication with my advisor, Professor Tannenbaum, and qualitative market research. I also started attending office hours and leveraging useful resources from the Nelson Center of Entrepreneurship. Finally, my early corporate experience at Tapestry became the inspiration for my RISD senior thesis collection. While designing, I reflected on my own experience of getting dressed for office during summers. I kept having this dilemma where I wanted to look mature and part of the company, but also young and eager to bring fresh perspectives. I was also inspired by the wonderful women and mentors I met at work, and all the other working women dressed in business casuals or formal suits hustling through the streets of New York City. In this transitional moment, from early adulthood, from college to professional careers, fashion can play a critical role in how my peers and I want to represent ourselves as part of the real world. My collection, What Suits Me, reinterprets conventional suits and workwear in the office environment into unique silhouettes, showing a delicate balance between structure versus freedom, youth versus maturity, and aesthetic versus functionality, and conformity versus originality. It lingers in the boundaries of the acceptables and the unacceptables according to the unspoken office dress codes. By doing so, I wanted to take the audience into an office fantasy while also reminding them of reality. And last Friday, RISD Apparel successfully presented our senior fashion show. And just last night, we were all featured on Vogue magazine. It was a tough journey with so many obstacles. It took us 4 years to get a show back. But I want to congratulate all of my fellow apparel seniors who have tirelessly worked towards this finale. If I may borrow the metaphor of tapestry, I can clearly see how my dual degree education and professional experience We're all informing and influencing each other, where all the learnings are woven like a giant piece of tapestry. And the last 5 years have taught me to become that thread that stitches all my experiences into one, making me a product of interdisciplinary life. I see life as a series of projects. College was a project of itself. It had the most challenging problem, which was to figure out what I'm truly passionate about, and pressure tested. I also promised I wouldn't cry, but I had to connect with the most honest version of myself on what excites me the most, what my primary and supporting talents are, in this case, business and design, respectively. I never aimed for a perfect solution. Instead, every day was a new trial for an improved solution between my education and professional experiences. Problem, connection, solution. This has become a formula of creating maximum impact for all projects. From a girl sketching costumes, buttons, and dolls at 10 to completing the dual degree program today, I look forward to all the next challenges to face, people to connect with, and creative solutions to build. Thank you.